Guys, we won't get started just yet. We might wait another couple of minutes while the audience builds up. So I thought maybe first of all, while we do wait for a few more people to log on, we had a couple of really common themes and conversations happening this last week. So I thought we'd recap on a couple of things we discussed in previous in some of the previous webinars. And one of them's been around inspections. We're still getting a lot of landlords asking how we're going about inspections and leasing properties at the moment. We covered that off, I think, last week or the week before. But Zoe, I'm going to throw over to you just for a quick moment. Do you just want to recap on how the inspections are going, how we're conducting inspections, and maybe even the digital walkthroughs?
Yeah, so the inspections are still going really well. We're still having a lot of inquiry come through at the moment. So people are doing a bit of both. So there's some people that are coming through the private inspections that we're doing during the weekend, on the weekend as well. So we obviously follow a procedure, make sure everyone's spaced apart when going through and following the strict hygiene procedure as well. Otherwise, there are people that are just happy to apply for the properties just with the video tour that we're doing of the properties. So yeah, we're still getting applications come through, which is good to see.
Fantastic. The other one that we've had a lot of questions on from a lot of landlords, and again we spoke about, I think, in our first webinar, is the Zoom routine. So for those landlords that aren't aware, we have been conducting a lot of Zoom routines or Zoom meetings like this, but to do our routine inspections with the tenants. And that was just because we had a lot of tenants that were feeling uncomfortable about us coming into their homes during these unusual times. Carla's kind of been right across most of that. Carla, do you just want to give us a bit of a recap? How are they going?
Yeah. So they're definitely going really well. We've learnt a lot over the past few weeks, but we're definitely finding that tenants are actually really enjoying them, and they have been really well received by both the tenants and the landlords.
Beautiful, and we're getting the hang of how to run Zoom pretty quickly, aren't we?
Yeah, it's really quite user friendly, which is good.
Terrific. Hey guys, it's about 6:03, so I reckon we're going to kick things off. For everybody who's already on, welcome back. For all our landlords who joined us last week and the week before, welcome again. I should probably just put it out there that again this week what we've chosen to do is open this up to some other investors that aren't just our landlords. We're very aware that we're a bit fortunate as a business to have an incredible team, but also some resources that a lot of other companies don't have. And also there's a lot of private landlords out there. So for any of you who aren't our landlords, but you're investors or you're private investors, welcome in tonight as well. I guess probably the purpose of these evenings is this COVID-19 situation is changing so rapidly. Every day we're getting more information, we're seeing new things occur. And we've chosen to do these webinars just to make sure that our landlords and our investors are kept up to speed as much as we can during these times, and we'll continue to do this for you for as long as we need to. You know, in the event that it becomes irrelevant, we'll stop it. But at the moment, the feedback from you guys has been terrific. We hope you're getting good information out of these. And again, if there are any topics that you need us to cover or thoughts that you want us to run over, just let us know. The theme or the format is, we call it a 5x5, and that's 5 minutes on 5 topics. And we're doing that a little bit just to try and stick to some timelines, because one, I tend to talk far too much, but two, some of the topics are really quite in depth. And if we didn't put a bit of a time restraint on it, we could be here all night. So we will try and stick to those timelines. If we run out of time for everything or questions, we'll make sure we put that in next week's webinar, or we'll come back to you via email to recap on anything. I do need to put a bit of a disclaimer out there. So first of all, obviously, a lot of what we're going to talk about is industry specific. So a lot of it will relate to right across the industry, no matter where you are or which agent you're with, or whether you're a landlord of ours or not. But a lot of it also will be just our opinions and also how we're handling things as a company. So some things will be industry specific, some things will be very much Clark Nexstar Reef specific. So if you're not one of our landlords, just bear that in mind as well. We are a real estate agent. I do need to advise you that we're not financial advisors. The ATO has reached out to the real estate world this year just to remind us of that. It is a bit of a difficult situation. Obviously, we manage your investments, your investment properties, and with that comes guidance in that world as well as for tenants, and especially at the moment, given everything that's going on. But we do need to be careful as real estate agents, we don't trip over that line and enter into that financial world. So just be aware of that. If you need financial advice, there are plenty of terrific financial advisors, or your own accountants are going to be best to guide you through that part. And I guess finally, before we kick in as well, we want your participation. So if you haven't used Zoom before, if you just move your mouse around, you'll see down the bottom of the screen, there are a few little functions there. There is a Q&A section. So we would encourage you to put your questions in there again. And at the end of it, our last topic is Q&A, and we'll come back and try and answer as many of those questions as we can. Not everything at the moment can be answered. You know, we are very open and honest about saying we can't give you the answers to everything, because at the moment, as Scotty Morrison said the other night, there is no rule book to this, and we are just working through it as an industry and as a company and as a community as best we can. But we will answer as much as we can for you. And in the event that we can't, we'll add it to our list of things to research and come back to you as soon as we can. So I want to also introduce you to our panel tonight. So some of you may not know some of your property managers. A lot of you are absentee landlords. So I'm just going to one by one get the team to run through and introduce themselves to you.
Hi, I'm Kirsty Patterson.
Hi, I'm Zoe Clarkson.
Hi, I'm Carla Hudgell.
Hi, I'm Brittany Robson. Hodgkin.
Hi, I'm Alicia
Still using your maiden name.
Hi, I'm Ralph Horns.
Very good. We also have another really special guest tonight as well. If you notice an extra face on your screen, Hayley Mitchell is joining us. Hayley, how are you? Have we got you off mute yet?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome aboard. I'm going to save a more formal introduction to Hayley till a little bit later on, but Hayley is joining us as a special guest. She's been a long-term associate of ours. Hayley runs a property management business over in Geelong. She also runs a dedicated property management training company. And as such, we call on her for a lot of resources. We utilise her in our own business. And she's also was going to join us later on this year to run a seminar on some of the latest legislation changes that are coming up. So I won't get bogged down in that just yet, because we've got a whole little moment dedicated to Hayley, and she's going to update us on a bit of that as well. So let's get into this, I think, guys. First of all, topic number one, market conditions, the current market conditions. I'm going to hand over to Alicia, who's sort of been right across our inspections and activity this week. Alicia, can you give the guys at home a bit of an update on how things have gone this last week?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. So we've still had a lot of activity from the tenants. We've had 37 inspections with 29 groups through those inspections. We've received 22 applications and leased 10 of those properties. So there's definitely not a shortage of tenants out there at the moment.
And in comparison to usual markets, Alicia, that's pretty strong, isn't it?
It's generally a standard week for us, so we haven't seen much of a drop, really.
Fantastic. And have we noticed if the applicants are coming from, are they local? Are they out of town? Is there more of a Melbourne influence at the moment?
I think it's probably a good combination. There's obviously still people in town that want to move around just for family reasons or whatever it might be, but there is people from out of town, whether it's their employment that's bringing them down here or family changes. It's just a good combination of both.
Great. One of my favourite sayings at the moment, guys, is that it's certainly not business as usual, but it is still business all the same. And we actually have been, we were talking about it just before coming on, that we're kind of almost sliding into a bit of a normality as best as we can at the moment. We're feeling like we're getting our head above water and people are getting used to this. But we have noticed some interesting trends in our own workflow in business. And Britt and I were having a conversation about this today. So Britt, do you want to sort of recap on what you and I were talking about in regards to workflow and a bit of a change that we've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we were saying today, and I noticed that other property managers in the team have noticed the same thing, especially over the last week. We've noticed a lot of maintenance requests on the properties that we manage. Tenants are seeming quite anxious about getting the work done, and the trades being able to still attend under the current conditions. So we're still working with the individual landlords and the trades to accommodate it as best and safely we can, and make sure that the tenants are comfortable in their homes.
Beautiful. So we think a lot of that that demand on maintenance at the moment is just because I think tenants have got a little insecure over in the event of a lockdown, would we have got things done? That'd be fair to say, isn't it, Brett? So they're just trying to
absolutely.
Yeah, so they're trying to speed up that that process a little bit. And probably what we would say to our landlords is, as best you can, now is the time to actually really accommodate that, because one, trades are available, they are still working and working as strong as ever, and also two, now is the time to be a little bit giving with your tenants, because if they feel that love and that support at the moment, we're going to see that reciprocated back from them as well. So it's a good opportunity. It's made our workflow a little bit difficult, but it's a good opportunity to get up to speed with all our maintenance. I guess from my opinion in terms of the general market conditions at the moment, and I'll look at this from both an investment landlord but also a sales perspective, the market is still going really strong. We are so fortunate in our area, and this is area specific to a degree, but we are quite a resilient marketplace. During poor economic times in the past, we have seen a new supply of movement, both tenants and buyers, into our marketplace as they try and downsize mortgages, move out to more affordable locations from some of the inner city areas. We think that's already occurring again, because our inquiry in general, both from tenants and buyers, has remained pretty strong. Our sales team have already done 8 sales in the last 8 days this month. So really interesting. I've been in a meeting with realestate.com today. Realestate.com have said that although inquiry levels have greatly reduced, the actual hits on their website is going through an almost all-time high and a peak. We see really similar things over the Christmas New Year period. During Christmas New Year's, typically our physical inspections or inquiry is quite low. People are on holidays, they're enjoying lots of festivities, but it's also a time when they are at home with their families, re-evaluating what they want out of life. The conversations we're having with realestate.com today is that there is a sense that that's occurring again. People are spending more time at home at the moment. They're at home with their families. And some of that might be over duress or panic or concern about financial times, but the other part of it is about re-evaluating, is this the town we want to live in? Is this the location we want to be in? Where should we be? Should we consider downsizing and reducing mortgages? So don't get me wrong, we expect our market to be affected no different to anyone else, but the signs for our area at the moment is actually really quite strong, and our regional area we think will remain pretty resilient there. My little timer, guys, of 5 minutes is telling me that we're almost wrapped up on that. So I think what we'll do is we'll move on to topic number 2. This might get through quite quickly, but Kirsty and I felt this was really important to talk about this week, because in a time where we're hearing obviously a lot of doom and gloom, there's a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety around what's going on from both a personal point of view, but also for you as landlords and as investors, with the strain that's going to come from that. So, Kirst, we've seen some pretty unique and pretty awesome and inspiring things this week, haven't we?
We have. So we've had our tenants communicating with us really well with their situations, which is really good. So tenants that haven't lost their jobs and are fine to pay their rent are communicating that with us to reassure the landlords. And tenants that have had their hours cut or have lost their jobs are also communicating with us and just saying their rent may be a few days late, but they are going to be in a position to pay. So that's been great to see from our tenants. We've also had a landlord offer one of their tenants a reduced rent, which was not from the tenant's request, it was just something that they wanted to do. And the tenants actually came back to us and said, we'd like to offer a higher amount to try and meet in the middle so that everyone's contributing to the situation. So we just, found that to be really sort of good news story across the board for our landlords and tenants both working together, which is great.
In general, Kirsty, the attitude from a lot of the tenants, even those that we've probably fair to say we've had a much higher increase in tenants calling, suggesting that they're going to find it tough to pay rent, but the majority of them aren't looking for a handout. They're just communicating with us and asking for a bit of extra time or something, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah, so they're not asking for a rent reduction or a rent-free period, and they're not saying they're in hardship. They're just communicating moving forward that they'll be a few days late or or what they'll need to do to meet their needs financially.
So your tenants, landlords, I guess to our landlords, what we're seeing at the moment is a real uniting of, camaraderie or community, and that is that most of them, and we hope that's partly to do with the communications we've sent them, but we also think that's just partly the Australian way, that they get that you're also going through this. The large majority of our tenants and community have actually accepted that just everyone's going to feel this. So I've been really encouraged by that, and I know Kirsty had, and hence why we sort of wanted to share some of that with you tonight. And I know it might seem like an insignificant topic, but I thought you as landlords needed a bit of good news this week. Thanks, Kirst. All right, so we're going to wrap that up. We're going to get into topic number 3, which was hardship and rental payments. Now, we've sort of probably tried to leave a little bit of extra time for this one, so my timer in the corner might get ignored a little bit. And I might refer to Kirsty, and I might even throw Hayley in under the bus at some point in time and ask for an extra comment on this along the way. Firstly, I want to probably start with some basics. So as I said at the start, the ATO has reached out to us today, this week, to remind us as agents not to cross over the boundaries of financial advice. There are a lot of stimulus packages available to tenants, and we can certainly advise them there. There were some parts of the real estate world, and certainly we had even considered it from the superannuation funds, for example. There is some offerings from the government at the moment for people to get early access to certain amounts from their super. These things are available, but they're not things that we're allowed to actually offer advice or suggestions on. And we need you as our landlords to just be aware of that. We've had a few landlords reach out saying, has this been something that's been suggested? We've had a very clear direction from the Australian Tax Office that's not our area. But what we can do is certainly make sure they're aware of what's on offer to them and direct them. As I said before, we've got a lot of highly skilled professionals in our area and our region, accountants, financial advisors and planners, and we've been in touch with the large majority of them. We've invited them to these nights as well, just so that they're aware of what we're talking about, and we'll work through that as best we can. The moratorium. So we all know now that there has been a moratorium on evictions due to hardship caused by COVID-19. Okay, that's been declared. We know that. But there is not a moratorium on evictions due to bad behaviour. There is not a moratorium on not having to pay rent. Nowhere yet has it been said that a tenant doesn't have to pay rent. Now, we've been waiting almost every day on bated breath for more information about rent assistance or rent guidance and what the government's going to do. They have released some more information today in the commercial space, but not in the residential. So, look, at the moment, nowhere does it say they have to pay rent. And we have had a couple of tenants sort of throw that one our way. Potentially how they pay their rent, when they pay the rent, or how much rent they pay, that could be debated, and it may be something that has to be negotiated, dependent on each circumstances, but they are still required to pay rent. So I just want to point that out. Thirdly, we know this is a bit confusing, all right? There is certainly coming to us, Hayley might shed some light on it later, but there's a lot of information that does feel a bit contradictory, and it's not deliberate. It's just the reality is this is not a one shoe fits all. As of today, or as of the moment, unless it's being announced as we're talking, there is still no legislation that's been brought in to deal with these new guidelines or this new advice. The legislation that we have to deal with and that you have to abide by as a landlord is still the legislation we had before COVID-19. There is certainly a community sense, there's certainly guidance, and there's a sense of moral obligation that we have to do what we can to work our way through it. But we need you to be aware that the legislation that is still in place was the same that was before, okay? So maybe to put some relevance to that, I want to talk to you about your insurance. So a lot of our landlords have landlord insurance. In the event you choose to negotiate with a rent, and it is your with a tenant, in the event that you choose to give them rent-free periods or reduced rents, we need you to be aware that that may affect, it could void or it could greatly affect the level of claim that you can then make against your landlord insurance, okay? So I won't go into exact specifics about that just yet, but we just need you to be aware that in the event that you say, listen, I want to give them free rent, we've had a couple of landlords reduce rent. It's not that that mightn't be needed, but before you go straight to that, there are some steps that we want to go through, because your ability to claim on your landlord insurance will or could be affected, and to what level will depend on your individual policies. If this need arises, we will be encouraging you to speak with your individual insurers, just to make sure that we make the right informed decision, okay? Ultimately, you have the right to do what you want to do. It's your investment property. And we are getting a great sense that most of our landlords want to make sure they help their tenants out in the time that it's needed, which is great. But we just want one favour from you all, and that is that we want you to just not panic, take a deep breath, let us work through it with you step by step, because we do have a process in place already. I won't go over it now, but we did cover off on it last week, and that was our hardship form. So us, along with a lot of the real estate industry, have introduced a hardship form, and that is there. It's not there to be a grilling or be intrusive on our tenants, but it's there to make sure that, one, the tenants who genuinely need it can get assistance, but two, we need to know what level of assistance they actually need. We don't want to be guessing this. Everyone's going to go through different circumstances. It might be one job loss, two job loss. We also need to make sure that they have looked into what facilities are available to them. Is their employer able to have the JobKeeper and claiming the JobKeeper packages? All this stuff is relevant, and that's there to protect the tenant as much as it is you. So I won't go any more into the hardship form, but Kirsty, because we did cover off on it, and if you need to know more about it, we can resend the video from last week to you, or you're welcome to give us a call. But Kirst, how many hardship forms have actually been requested today?
So at the moment we've had 5 forms requested, but we've only had 2 forms submitted to us.
So I guess to put that in context, we manage over 700 properties. That is less than 0.5%, less than 0.5% of our current portfolio that has actually returned a hardship form. I think probably fair to say, Kirst, a few that we've sent it out to have actually acknowledged they maybe haven't done or looked into some of their other assets that they can, or the things that they can call on at the moment. That's right. Yeah, so some of them that we have sent off, once the tenants are looking through the questions, they're coming back to us and saying that they will be able to pay, they'll just need a little bit more time. Oh. So I guess in terms of hardship, and again, we've got to be a bit careful here, because each one of you is going to go through this a bit differently. But firstly, in the event that a tenant is suffering genuine hardship, 1, we will request these forms. 2, when we get them back, we will contact you, and we'll contact you before we get the forms back, by the way. As soon as we hear, we will be in touch. But how we deal with that, we're going to work with you on an individual basis, depending on both your own circumstances, your insurance, and how you want to proceed. You, as the landlord, can do what you like, but you have a number of things in which you can do. Our advice at the moment is to ensure that your insurance is valid and to ensure that we follow current legislation. The first thing we might do is look at rent deferrals. It doesn't have to go immediately into free rent. A lot of the tenants that we've spoken to already have just simply asked for maybe a bit of extra time, maybe a bit of extra assistance to catch up. So we're going to look at deferring some payments, maybe some payment plans, not necessarily saying, hey, here's a major reduction, because for a large portion of the people, that will be really sufficient and really appreciated. Second, whatever deals that you do, that we do come to a conclusion with you on, no matter what that looks like, our biggest suggestion at the moment is that we deal with that on a month-by-month basis. We've had some amazing landlords come out and say, hey, we want to do this for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it might be. The information is changing that's available to us every day. We are not sure what other incentives or stimuluses the government's going to come out with. There may be some new legislation in place. There may be some rent package further assistance. Or it might just be as simple as your tenant's own situation changes each month. So our suggestion to you is, and we appreciate how generous landlords are being, but our suggestion is, let's do this on a month-by-month basis, and we can just keep reassessing it. There's nothing wrong with saying, let's do it for another month, let's do it for another month. But at least that way it gives us a chance to look at the individual circumstances each time. Now, we've said this, by the way, openly to our tenants as well. So this is not, we've said that this is not a one-size-fits-all. There is not a blanket rule that we can apply across our portfolio, and that in the event that we've had a couple of testy situations, we've just said, listen, we will work through this with you as best we can. We've taken up a fair bit of time there. My time has well and truly run off the clock. I just want to quickly, before we move to our topic 4, Kirsty or Hayley, is there anything else that you would like to touch on there, or you think we should cover off on before we roll forward?
Yeah, with regard to the hardship scenario, when the government first came out and said, can't kick out tenants or evict tenants for 6 months, a whole lot of tenants went, yay, we don't have to pay rent for 6 months. And it's not the fact. They still have to pay rent. We just have to work out a way to help people through the process. And people that are in genuine hardship, we need to do everything we possibly can to make sure that, one, it doesn't impact landlords long term, but we also have to make sure that people are okay. And we've got a portfolio of 250. I've only got one tenant out of 250, and she's in genuine hardship. That landlord is amazing and just said, let's defer the rent for now. And we ring her every 2 days, not to do a, hey, where's your rent? It's a, hey, how are you going? Because we're actually really concerned about her welfare, and she's not coping well with the situation. And I think we've just got to come back to a human element and say, we're all humans. When we are actually struggling and put our hand up and go, we're struggling, we need to do everything we can to help them. And you guys are doing an amazing job.
Right. Kirst, unless you've got anything super important, we might move into, I'm getting a shake down there, beautiful. Guys, we'll move on to that. We'll move into topic number 4, and that is the tenancy legislation update. So you've just heard from Hayley. Guys, most of you will be aware that there were new tenancy legislation laws coming out and updates to the tenancy legislation this year. Some of them have already come into place, and others are coming out rolling throughout the year. Our intentions were to actually host a bit of a get-together, have some drinks, get all of our landlords in one room, and we were going to educate you on what these legislation changes are and how it may impact or affect you. Given obviously our current circumstances around COVID-19, getting together and having a drink and us talking through those changes with the assistance of Hayley is not necessarily possible. Our intentions are, though, that we're still going to do it. Our intentions, and we've spoken to Hayley about still running this seminar, because it is really vital, despite the fact that we've got a lot on our minds at the moment. These changes are coming into effect, and they do have an impact on you as an investor. And we think it's really important that we still do that. So we will set a date on that seminar probably over the coming week or 2, and we'll let you know exactly when that is. We had chosen a time in mid-May, which I'd suggest will probably still remain, but how we deliver that will be very different. So I'm going to hand over to Hayley. Hayley, as I said, obviously is a property manager trainer, and she's specialised. She's been doing a lot of seminars on updating landlords and agents on the effect and the way the legislation's changing. So Hayley, I'm going to hand over to you. Can you give us maybe a bit of a brief, I guess, some of the major impacts that are going to occur, and then maybe your thoughts around that in today's climate?
Yeah, it's my favourite topic. So when he says brief, he's going to have to put the timer on me as well. There's 138 changes coming, and they're coming in on the 1st of July 2020. Potentially they may be deferred, and what I mean by deferred is legislation change came into New South Wales last week. It did come in as planned. However, they then said that they won't put penalties on compliance for the next 6 months. So giving the agents time, because of the whole COVID situation, and then bringing in massive changes in legislation, it's going to be really, really tricky on everyone. So they may defer the compliance on it, but I do still think it's going to come in on the 1st of July 2020, which will be fun.
Yeah, just another challenge for us in these times, and for our landlords and tenants.
Yeah.
what do you think maybe are the 2 or 3, and we won't, and again, landlords and investors, we won't get too gritty on them because that's what we're going to have an entire webinar or seminar dedicated to these topics for you. So we promise we'll get you the very best information. But Hayley, what do you think the 2 or 3 big ones are, or I better not say your favourite, but the most topical?
My favourite or least favourite, not sure. The pets. So pets is the biggest one, 2nd of March. Pets are now allowed in rental premises. The thing is that they already were. We had no legislation covering pets, so we actually have more control now than what we had previously that was a silent act. So the process is now that a tenant has to apply for a pet, and they have to. They can't just get a pet and have it live in the property. They have to ask permission in writing. You then will have 14 days to say yes or no to the pet. If you want to say no to the pet, you need to go to VCAT to say no to the pet. And then it's VCAT's decision whether or not the pet is suitable for the property. If we then get an order saying the pet has to be removed from the premises, and the tenant doesn't remove the pet within 14 days, it's a 28-day notice to vacate. So we have a really good, strict guidelines on what we can and can't do. A couple of things on pets. You can put special clauses in. You can negotiate special terms. So if you say, yeah, they can have a dog, but the dog lives outside, that's fine. If that's negotiated on and you agree to it, that is an agreement. You cannot take a pet bond. So just be aware pet bonds are illegal. We're not going to be allowed to take those. One of the other big ones, which I guess I probably have a concern with more than others, is the whole rent arrears procedure. They're changing it to allow tenants more leeway to pay their rent late. And I'm ignoring COVID in this situation. It's going back to when we're back to normal practice. But tenants are going to be allowed a 5-strike policy every rolling 12-month period, which means that they can be more than 14 days late with their rent 5 times every 12 months. And that does concern me. What I would say though is you have very, very few tenants that play the rent arrears game. So it's not going to affect the majority of our clients, but those clients that do have tenants that know the rules and play the game, it will get a little bit trickier. And I guess the other big one for me is the removal of 120-day no reason notice. That's a notice to vacate that we've had at our disposal, where if we just say, hey, we don't want the tenant there anymore, we don't technically have a reason, we can serve that notice and they're removing that. And they're also restricting the use of our 90-day end of fixed term tenancy notice. So the only way you'll be able to get a tenant out of a property is a 60-day reason. For example, you want to sell the property, move into the property, change the use, renovate, demolition, that sort of thing. So our ability just to say, hey, tenant, we want you to move out is pretty much disappearing, which that does concern me. I think more owners will just turn their properties over more regularly because we'll have the ability to evict a tenant on the first lease term, but once it goes past another lease, it's harder to get them out.
So I think to our landlords there, the reason for that concern is that even good tenants can sometimes go bad. You know, you can have a terrific tenant that's been fantastic, but due to circumstances, it might be financial. Now, I don't want to include COVID in this, but in previous times, it could have been financial strain, it could have been divorce and mental health. There are lots of reasons why we as humans go through tough times, and sometimes, you know, repeat offenders on tenants can irk landlords, and that ability to just say, hey, we're going to wrap this up mutually, but with lots of notice, has been a really nice lever to be able to pull when needed, but that won't be there. So that's why there's a little bit of concern, I think, for us as your managers around that change.
Absolutely.
Hayley, thank you so much for joining tonight. But guys, keep an eye out. We will get an invitation out to you. We'll get some marketing around that. It will be probably mid-May still, and we'll bring that to you via Zoom. We're all going to be Zoom experts by then. So, Hayley, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay around because there might be some questions you can help us with. Okay, so guys, we're going to move into our Q&A now. So not everyone will be able to see the Q&A, so I'll read these questions out for you. So let's start with number one. We don't have a name for this person. Is it correct that landlord insurance is null and void now due to new legislation, as landlords can only make a claim for loss of rent if the current tenant is being evicted due to non-payment? So I guess I might refer to Kirsty on this, but one, every insurance policy is different. So we can't necessarily make any understanding or representation to your insurance policy. You will need to look into it. There's obviously lots of main dedicated landlord insurance providers, but there's also a lot of banks. So every insurance policy will be different, and you need to take that up with them. But two, there hasn't been any new legislation brought into effect yet that I'm aware of. Have I got that wrong, Kirst?
No, that's right. And I would agree just to refer to your insurance provider and check your policy. Yeah.
Kirsty and I have done a bit of reading just today, actually, through some of the insurance policies that we're involved with, and some of the information that they've been releasing, and they're all different, guys. So you do need to, if you're in doubt, give us a call, speak to your property manager. But the best thing we can do is just get onto the insurance brokers. Most of them are still working. They are still taking phone calls. A large majority of them are not taking any new policies anymore. So if you don't have it, you may struggle to get it. I think that's probably the best we can answer that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Can we get in, where we got Benjamin here? I think you mentioned the video was sent to landlords to tenants that we could see. Yes, so we did send out it was really just an update video, and I think we're scheduled to do another one tomorrow. So we'll send that out to you. And it was just simply saying we are very aware of the circumstances that you're in. It was also just letting them know that you as landlords are also in the same circumstance, and just reminding them that we're all in this together, because and also letting them know that there is a process that we need to go through. So really it was probably just a bit of a warm hug type of video that we wanted them to be aware that you as your landlords are going to be as accommodating as you can. But landlords also, and most of our landlords are mum and dad investors, being own one or maybe two properties at best. And so that's what we did. But Ben, we'll get that sent out to you so you can see what we've done. We have another question here. Do you know if insurance companies take action against tenants that default on rent if a claim is put in by the landlord? Kirsty?
Once again, I would refer back to your insurance provider. I guess they probably all do act in a similar way in these circumstances, but I would give them a call and just ask them how they react to that.
Yeah, it does vary. I certainly know one of the insurance policies I've had in the past is not, but it may vary dependent on who you're with. Matt, I know times are tough for some tenants and landlords, but how are you tracking difficult tenants that are not proactive with gaining government assistance and submitting the Clerk's Hardship form, but continue to ask for possible rent reductions? Also, if they do defer payments, is there a written contract that gets drawn up for this? So I guess in terms of how we're tracking it, we actually have a dedicated form for this. We also have a system in place for us to keep track of both the people that ask, the people that we think are in potential trouble that haven't requested anything yet, and also those that are approved. In respect to how we ask them to go for government or have they sought any government assistance, we're doing that both verbally but also on the hardship form. It does say, have you been to Centrelink? Or Kirsty, do you want to maybe just quickly run through some of those questions on the hardship form again?
Yeah, so we do ask them if they have applied for Centrelink and rent assistance through Centrelink assistance. But these conversations start when the tenant is first in arrears. So we're talking to them from day one to see what's happening. Is the payment late because they just forgot to pay it, or is it late because they are experiencing hardship? And then once that conversation progresses, that's when the form comes into play. So if they are then going to have a rent reduction or a rent deferment, we would put that in writing to all parties to confirm it.
I guess, Matt, in respect to if they're not being proactive, we haven't really had to face it too much yet. As we said, there've only been 2 forms actually brought in. Kirst, those 2 forms that have been submitted, they've been fairly genuine?
So one I believe is a genuine hardship case, and as Hayley mentioned earlier, we take that very seriously. The other, I believe that they will apply for Centrelink, which they hadn't done, and they'll be paying their rent because there will be a back payment offered to them once they are approved.
So in the event that also if they do defer payments, is there a written contract? Yes. So by way of written contract, it depends again how we go about it. A contract can be a contract by law is anything where there is offer and acceptance, okay, and consideration. So we can do that in writing simply by acknowledgement, whether it's on a letterhead or whether it's via email. In terms of us drawing out, we will handle that for you. In terms of whether it's a deferral of rent, in that event, they'll actually just technically be remain in arrears. You know, so, and that's more than likely how we will handle that situation, is that they'll just remain in arrears for a period of time. You and I will, or you as the landlords and us as the managing agents, will work out a payment plan for them, and they will just work through that. That's no different to what we've been doing forever, guys. You know, so hardship is not a new thing. It's just that it's obviously a much bigger impact thing at the moment. We have had to handle this over the years with lots of tenants who have generally gone through hardship in their own lives for lots of reasons, and they've been great tenants that we haven't wanted to lose. So we have always sat down with landlords, sat down with tenants, and said, how can we best work through this? You know, can we, you know, reduce your rent for the time being and you pay it back when you can? You know, what's the procedures we can do? And we'll do that in writing with the tenant. We've had another question come in, Jackie and Jeff. Are you able to send landlords a copy of the hardship forms template? Yes, we actually got requested that this week. I don't know that we've done that yet, have we, Kirsty?
We have, yes. So we have sent it out to the landlords asked for it, but we can certainly send it out to everyone so that you can see what questions are being asked. Yeah.
We might do that as a blanket email, just so that everyone's got a copy of what that hardship form is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Terrific. Guys, that's kind of it. We don't have any more questions on there at the moment. I want to probably just send out a special thank you to these panelists. One, Hayley, thank you for joining in and giving us your time, but also the portfolio managers on your screen, guys, are working so tirelessly. It's not unusual to have them in a Zoom meeting with me at 7 o'clock at night. They're doing that for you. They are working around the clock, and I want to say a massive special thanks to them, because I think they've just been incredible under the circumstances. Well done, girls. We are going to have I don't think it worked last time. So there should be a survey that comes out to you directly after this via the Zoom link. So if you could take a moment to fill that in, that would be really appreciated. It should pop up as soon as this session closes. So don't log out just yet. Allow us to end the meeting for you. And if you could just do that quick, that survey, that'd be great. If for some reason it doesn't work again, we'll send it out to you via a survey form in the coming 24, 48 hours. So guys, again, stay safe, stay healthy. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call the people on your screen. They're here to take your call. They are working as per usual, and we're in this with you, and we're going to come out the other side. So thanks for that, and we will talk to you all again next week.